On today's podcast, we're going to be talking about spring cleaning. The weather's getting warmer and it's time to dust out those houses. I am joined today by my good friend and professional organizer, Kacie Ferrazzo. She's going to give us her tips for getting started, getting our garages cleaned, and tell us what it can do to improve our entire mood for the season to come. Welcome to Feeding the Family with Dr. Kristin, where we help you navigate the challenges of feeding your family and learn about the role food plays in our health and relationships. Feeding and food relationships can be stressful, confusing, and even destructive. I'm Kristin a pediatrician and mother of 4 who's been researching and sharing what I've learned about feeding for over 10 years. In this podcast, I'll share my experience and expertise to help our kids and ourselves with everyday survival tips for real parents. This podcast is about progress, not perfection. So let's get started. Welcome back to Feeding the Family with Dr. Kristin. I'm your host, Kristin Saxena, and on today's episode, we're going to be talking about spring cleaning. Yay! I'm here with my friend and cleaning and organizing expert, Kacie Ferrazzo. Kacie is a professional organizer and a female entrepreneur. She owns her own business called Get Organized Omaha, and I am very, very excited to have you here today to not only coach me, but help our listeners that maybe want to do a little bit of spring cleaning this time of year.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Oh, well, I'm excited to get started. So first things first, I wanted to ask you, what does spring cleaning mean to you?
That's a really good question because I think people will first think of spring cleaning as, dusting your ceiling fans and moving your chair in your living room and cleaning behind the couch. But I think spring cleaning is different for every person. It kind of depends on where you are in your life. Maybe your home is super organized and tidy and there's just one little place you have to target, or maybe you're a hot mess and you're having to kind of tackle it all. So I think it's very different for different people. So I think spring cleaning to me is new season, new time to start all over. We have that time, the first of the year. They kind of talk, there's always they, who is
those they, I know.
But they.
The man, the people.
Yeah, the peeps. They say that there's 3 times a year where we can restart, obviously New Year's, right?
Yeah.
Spring, and then that kind of like back to school fall. Yes. The late August, early September kind of typically breaks into those 3. So spring is my favorite restart time.
I just love that. I love it because I think I've even said that before, is like I'm kind of a sucker for these like fresh start, new beginnings. And I hadn't thought of spring particularly like that. I agree. I was always like, I love school starting. I always feel like even though I'm not in school, you get that sense like all your pencils are new. And then of course, New Year's. I'm not a big resolution person, but I just love that. But that is kind of interesting because I was looking up spring cleaning, like where did this concept come from?
Yeah.
And it is kind of funny because there's like various traditions from around the world. And obviously, it kind of makes sense, like if you're thinking of the season of spring, like traditionally you're thinking like everyone was holed up in the house and now like you can open the windows and let in the fresh air. But even like I want to say like there's a Persian New Year that happens around this time of year, and one of the traditions for that was something about like shaking out the house, kind of getting like the dust out of the house. And same, I want to say that's like a Jewish tradition prior to like Passover. One of the traditions was, I think it was even like cleaning out any like leavened bread because that was part of the tradition. And so like getting every crumb. So this sort of concept of deep cleaning, I just found that fascinating, that I think you're right. There's something inherent with these like certain times of the year, certain parts of what's going on that just kind of signal these new beginnings and restart. So I love that. Yeah.
So I think it just really depends on the person, but I think decluttering goes hand in hand with spring cleaning because you can't really get to the cleaning if there's stuff to work around.
Right. So, and that's kind of what I was thinking, like more, I can't say that I've really done any spring cleaning, but in my defense, it doesn't feel that springy right now in Nebraska. So maybe like the spirit hasn't moved me.
Yeah. Let's get to April.
I was just before we started here complaining about how cold I was. It doesn't feel springy today, but I was thinking that like not only in the home, but just like sort of this idea of like decluttering in general. Like I definitely am a person that needs to like purge some things. And even recently, I think from one of the last times we talked, one of the things that I instituted, not a big change, is I put a little basket in my closet for the donation, the idea of like
That's
a
great.
set spot, because I was finding like it was always something I was putting off, like, oh, I need to go through this, but feeling like it was something I needed a huge block of time to be like, get the trash bags out and go through all my closet. Whereas if I just, per your recommendation, had this little bucket or little basket, then I can just, that one time where you try on a shirt and you're like, turns out I hate this shirt,
Doesn't
like
fit right,
get
or
rid of
whatever.
it. Yeah,
that's perfect. And if everyone in your family knows where the spot is too, and in my house it's just right in the entryway of our garage, and every so often we'll take it to the donation spot.
I love that. But also just kind of made me think in general, just this idea of like decluttering like my email inbox, unsubscribing to things, decluttering maybe, like I even was giving some thought to just sort of like the family schedule. Like I always feel like once in a while I need to do this sort of like relook at what we're doing, because it's easy.
For sure. I think it's so much more than just the physical stuff in your own home. I think we're all on this information overload, especially with, we've gone through this pandemic, and, there's a war in our world and the news cycles. So I think people need to just take a moment and, unsubscribe, get to your emails and remove emails that are coming in and stop the notifications. I think it's a decluttering of mentally and not just physically, and that will allow more time to focus on the physical decluttering, because one of the number one things people say is they don't have time.
Yeah.
Well, what can we do to free up time? One of the big things, social media and the time wasters, so to speak. Yeah,
for sure. And even along that line, I think looking at like who am I following? I think even that can get cluttered up, because I find you follow this person or join this Facebook group or whatever, and then you find that even that, like that messaging is filling up, and sort of like maybe it's starting to weed out the things that you're truly interested in, or like just the pictures of your friends' kids that you want to see or whatever. So I love that idea. But along that lines too, I think, and I'm sure you can speak to this maybe more than most anyone, is the idea of how your physical space, and whether it's tidy and organized, how that affects like sort of your mental functioning and even just mental health.
I think everyone I talk to in our initial phone conversation mentions being overwhelmed. So I think it does overflow into every other area of your life, because you've probably had a busy day at work and you come home and it's just not relaxing and you can't find anything. And if you have a family, it just adds chaos to the entire environment, whether that's trying to find the right clothes for the next day or whatever that looks like. But I think that it's a constant weight that they're carrying. And I think that part of this spring cleaning idea is maybe you don't have time to organize and declutter your entire garage, but at least you can get started. And I think the big thing too is making time, scheduling time to actually take action to get it to happen, because it's sitting down with your spouse or whoever is in your home and actually dedicating the time to accomplish it.
So is spring cleaning something that you specifically do at your house? Or is your house always spring clean?
Well, I think that there's always room for decluttering, even in everyone's home, right? Because it's maintenance. And I talk to my clients a lot about that too. It's not like you just do this one time and you're good forever. I mean, you're going to, especially if you have children, they bring new things into the home and it's a reoccurring cycle. But I think to me, spring cleaning, kind of like you said in the beginning, it's letting the fresh air in and doing some of that deep cleaning stuff, or maybe really, if you're looking to clean your bedroom, actually getting everything off the carpet and vacuuming back in those corners that are a little dustier than you'd like to see them. So I think it's just you're going to do your regular surface cleaning, but this is the time to dig a little deeper, but actually involve some decluttering too.
Yeah. So like, is there one like thing that you're really looking forward to spring cleaning at your own house?
I think the garage.
Oh,
right?
yes. I want to talk about garages.
Yeah, it's this time of year, and people are, when they think spring cleaning, it goes to the outside of the house too. The landscaping, all of the removal of the leaves from last year that haven't been taken away, all that. It's nice to get everything out of the garage, do a sweep.
Yeah.
Get the leaf blower out, get everything clean. So I think the garage, the weather's starting to get warmer. It's harder to do over the winter. So if that's an area you can tackle, now is the time.
Totally. So we're actually redoing our garage, like in the next couple of months. So I had this in my mind a lot about how do you like organize your garage. Our garage is kind of a mess, I would say. And I was reading something and I really thought it resonated in the sense that, I mean, if you live in the type of home that you have a garage, that is like the first thing that you see when you come home. And I feel like garages get neglected a little because it's a place that maybe not a lot of people see. So it might not be the first thing that people would say, like, I really need to feel motivated to make this presentable. But you live there every day, and usually when you come home, from a long day of work or errands or whatever you've been up to that day, I think it can do a lot for your mentality in terms of, like, if you're coming to some place that looks like organized and tidy and not chaotic versus like where you're just trying not to like hit stuff with your car because
it's starting stressful right away.
Yeah, absolutely. So do you have any good tips for people in terms of, because I agree, and it is like probably one that's, at least in my mind, if you're thinking about what's one that might be more fun to clean out for spring cleaning, at least it's one where you get to like go outside and, I know lots of years, the kids they can play outside usually, and you kind of feel like you're getting some fresh air. It's like a more pleasant, I guess.
You have a great attitude because in general, most people are like,
I say that now, but at the time it's like, forget that.
I was to say, garages are on the bottom of people's list, so they need to take your positive attitude.
Maybe just silver lining. Like, this will suck, but hey, you'll get some sunshine. So what are your tips for people when it comes to like tackling that garage?
Well, it's a big tackle, right? So I think there's a few things. First of all, again, everyone is different. Some people are just kind of tweaking their garage, but a lot of people can't park their cars or car in a garage. So again, this looks different for different people, but like you said, this is an instant point of stress when you're not able to even move around in there. And you mentioned the kids' toys and those types of things. So now is the season where we're going to be outdoors more, and it's kind of reassessing what's in your home. Do you need some sort of container perhaps that's in the backyard? That, like in my house, we have just an outdoor, container with the flip lid, and that's where the sports balls and that sort of things are. So a lot of times people are trying to jam that all into the garage, and it's not ideal. Yeah. So I think the other thing is garages become just a dumping zone.
Yes.
So really, it's just like any home organization project. Everything is intertwined. So you might be intending to organize your garage, but you might end up going to your basement, and that's okay. If you're naturally taken to a different part, maybe that's what needs to happen. So maybe the root of your problem is that your basement is full or whatever. So maybe that's why your garage is getting too full. But really, it's a matter of any space in the house. With the garage, you have to take everything out.
That was actually my question, because I remember as a kid that used to be like my method for cleaning stuff out, but I would lose steam. So I feel like I would get I'd be like, I'm going to take everything off the shelves and out of the drawers. And then, but I was never very good at being dedicated to that, but I just remember then I would just lose some steam and be like, well, I need a break. And then it was like, my mom would come in and be like, holy God, what happened here? I was like, I was reorganizing, but
But
I'm
then
good.
I wanted a snack. Well, but I think it's good that you say that, because I think you represent the real world. I mean, it's easy to say, oh yeah, just take everything out on a Saturday. But so then in that case, maybe you don't have a whole weekend to dedicate to organizing and cleaning your garage. Then you can work in sections. And maybe realistically, you're going to have an hour. So then it's just like if I'm organizing someone's kitchen and I don't have time to do it, I'm not going to leave them with a mess until the next time I see them. So you can just work in sections so it doesn't become as overwhelming. And maybe you're setting your timer for an hour, but just remove everything in that given spot and put it into your driveway or whatever space you have in your home. And because chances are you can get rid of a lot of it.
That's what I was going to ask too. Do you have any sort of like specific process you recommend? Because that, I think, is like the crux of a lot of issues is just too much stuff. And then, I don't know, you don't feel like you have the time or like the mental energy to like go through it on the day to day, but then it just keeps accumulating. So like is there like a strategy that you suggest for people when they're like, all right, I'm going to tackle this.
I'm ready to do it.
Yeah.
So first of all, yes, definitely remove everything, because it's just like if you're in your closet and you're going shirt to shirt, it's just not the same as if you put everything on your bed, because first of all, you can see how much you have. And so then you're going to want to categorize it. So if you think of your garage specifically, you're going to want to have zones, your tools, your lawn and yard stuff, your kids' sports items, whatever that looks like. So while you are emptying, if you can be categorizing, and, then there's that big process of sorting and purging. So can you discard most of it? Can it be, well, not most of it, but some of it, maybe most of it. And can you donate some of it? And does it actually belong in this spot? So that's the big chunk of organizing. And once you get through that process, then you can actually start dedicating zones, and then you can do your cleaning and your sweeping too, which is so gratifying.
And like what is there any particular like way that you then do the cleaning in there? I mean, are you like a hose out the garage or a sweep out the garage, or what? Once, let's say you have everything out, you've organized it in your piles, it's almost time to put everything in. What's best practice per Kacie to get this garage super clean? I'm sure some people will have
but when I'm working with clients, we'll usually do, some good sweeping and leaf blower just to make sure all of the yuck is out.
Yeah.
How about you? What do you do?
Well, none yet.
Because you have to be
that's true.
In the garage.
I'm asking you so I can figure out what needs to be done. No, I would say like looking at our garage right now, like we have a window in our garage, which I guess seems like nice. A cool idea, but I mean, I don't know why, because it has like these shutters on it, and it is just, to me, it's like the cobwebs and like the critter bug things that have accumulated in these, and our garage is super tall. So it's like, you can't just like get at them. And so to me, that's where it's like, but even to get to the window to clean it off, I would have to move all the crap that's on the ground. Like, so it just never happens. Right. So I think that's the time, but it's like, I don't know, we live by the forest. So I just feel like we have all the bugs and cobwebs and leaves, just everywhere in every little nook and cranny. So I think we definitely need to do that, but for our garage, I think it would require like ladders to get up into those corners.
That's okay. You can do that once a year.
Yeah. So I'm kind of eager to see those go away, because I do feel like I see those, and it definitely seems unmanageable from day to day to be like, well, today is not the day to take care of that. But
and again, you talk about your scheduling and maybe simplifying your schedule. And I think that's the thing. A lot of times people getting through the business week, it's like, whew, we made it. And, it just takes enough I tell my clients a lot, you're not getting to these deeper projects because it just takes a lot to do your regular week, right? Without the extras and just getting through the sports practices and work schedule and homework and that whole thing. So it really is being intentional with your scheduling and your timing, and actually carving out that time to make it happen. Otherwise, it's just going to get pushed away because you can come up with more fun activities than organizing your garage.
Yeah, and it never feels urgent, I think. So it becomes one of those things. So I guess that is a question, because you talked a lot about like this feeling of overwhelm, which I think I can totally relate to, and I think it's just a deterrent. It's already something you're not looking forward to. Then you get this sort of sense of just like, it's just too overwhelming. I can't handle it right now. So a lot of it becomes this idea of like making it manageable, carving out time. So what do you, as a professional organizer, but also a mom, and a businesswoman, how do you practically carve these things into your life?
Well, I think that, again, that word intentional and having other people on board in the family who are, who is living in your home, I think it can't all be on your shoulders, so to speak. So I think that it's just diving in and starting, number one, because I always say it's a domino effect. So if you're overwhelmed with the whole situation in your house, you just have to start somewhere. So if you do get started, it's going to be a domino effect, and it's going to be, you're going to see, okay, I accomplished this, and then it's that snowball. And a lot of people will complain about, well, I can't get the other family on board. Just focus on yourself first. And I think it is getting everyone involved and doing that nightly reset. So I think it's taking 20 minutes at the end of the night to make sure everything is situated how you want it to start better the next morning. But
I'm not good at that,
because it's hard.
You're tired.
You're just exhausted.
I'm like so guilty of being like, that's tomorrow's problem.
Well, and maybe it is tomorrow's problem for you, and maybe that in this spring season.
I don't know if that's a good method.
Well, but it can be if maybe your thing is maybe you need to start waking up earlier.
Right.
Maybe someone needs to wake up, like we all hear it, but maybe this is your season where you're going to commit to waking up before. Well, I can't do that. Well, then just figure out what works for you. But maybe that is resetting in the morning and having your coffee before your kids are awake. But I think the big thing is just getting started and taking action, because a lot of people are stuffers. Because it's like, I don't have time for this right now. Oh my gosh, there's 50 things that my kids brought home from school. I'm just stuffing it.
Yep.
So it's, first of all, we have to start new processes to avoid the stuffing. So it's like, if you can just take a moment to, number one, deal with the clutter that you have right now, but then it's starting a new rhythm, a new practice. Otherwise, you're going to be back right where you were. So paperwork is a huge thing, and just new habits that you get into to make your mornings and evenings, etc., flow better.
So, like, if you what is like your number one habit that you would say helps you be successful in staying clean and organized, like a specific thing that you do regularly? If I was going to try to adopt one habit that was manageable that you think would give me my greatest return on investment for staying organized, what would that be? I'm listening.
This is a fun one. It's pressure. I think just, you're saying in my own life.
Yeah, like what are you like? This is really like the one thing I do that probably helps me out the most, whether it's has to do with kids' papers or in the kitchen or whatever, time blocking, I don't know. You tell me.
So I think that I would answer that by saying everything in my home, and not like my home is perfect, but it's
pretty, I've been there. It's pretty tidy.
So I think everything has a home. With that said, I have 2 children, grade school aged kids, and it can be, we could have our whole house professionally cleaned, and then like 5 hours later it's a scene. But I think I can tell when I'm starting to, and I think the last time I talked to you, I don't want my kids not to be able to be kids, and I want them to have fun, but I can feel when it's getting chaotic for me, and then I need to press pause and have all hands on deck and just reel it in and and put everything where it needs to go and go through all of the paperwork. And, if there's something you have to fill out for your kid's school, like take action on it.
Yes.
If it's something that can be done in less than a minute or two, just do it.
That I love that, because I think that one sometimes I'm guilty of is it's like, oh, not right now, not right now. And then you end up with this pile of forms or an inbox full of, like, I always leave it like unread when I know I need to do it. But then it kind of creates anxiety as you see, like, oh, I had 5 emails, now I have 10 because I had to save the 5 that have a little task for me to do. And some of those, okay, fine. Like, it was a big job and you're like, I need to really address it. But it's exactly right. Sometimes it's like, just log in and fill out that form.
Yep, just take it.
Just
if it's
do it.
under 2 minutes, just press pause. But I think that, to answer your question, there was a very roundabout way, but it's like taking that time sometimes just to reset, but again, involving everyone, because then it can actually happen. And if everything has a defined home, it's going to be that much easier to make that happen. But that's a big deal to make sure. That sounds really simple, but most people don't have a specific place for all of their items in their home.
Right
it just
on.
Doesn't work like that. A lot of times, I can't tell you the number of people I've talked to that said, it was just kind of crazy when we moved into our house and nothing ever really truly got a home. So it just, then how do you pick up and how do your family members know where to go if there's not a defined space?
Yes. Well, speaking of family, so number one, is your husband, Nick, is he as like organized and tidy as you are?
He is, and he's awesome.
Or more?
Because he doesn't really care about things, so that makes it pretty easy. He's like just very simple with his stuff, and he's great. He picks up his stuff, and he's pretty simple.
Would you say like you both feel like you have the same level? Like, is one of you more tolerant of a mess than the other? Or are you both like super into being organized?
Don't make a mess.
Okay.
That this is like our ongoing joke, because I kind of make fun of him.
Well, because I think this is real life. Like couples, usually there's like one likes it one way, one not so much. So yeah.
I think it works. We're pretty lucky that we're pretty much on the same page. And again, he just doesn't contribute a lot of stuff, so I probably am a little more particular than him, but it's all good. But to your point though, a lot of families that I work with, it's like 2 bad habits are making it worse, whereas it's like they always say, if you're trying to watch what you eat, it's easier if your partner is on your same page. It's the same concept. If you're trying to organize your home, it's easier if the person that you're sharing the space with is on your same page too. So a lot of times you do see the opposites, and that causes a lot of stress and tension, of course. And then, like I said earlier, a lot of times it's like, well, if you're both having those bad habits, it's like, well, she's not doing it, he's not doing it. It's like, well, just focus on. And then let's talk about kids too.
That was my other question. Yeah. How do you get them on board?
Well, they're going to mirror your habits typically too, right? If you're not clearing your plate every night, then your kids are absorbing that and are going to follow suit.
Sure, just modeling it, and I get behind that some, but like on the other hand, I feel like, my kids would be very, even if I did the dishes every night, which for that matter, they do the dishes every night, but I think they'd be perfectly happy, like, if to leave them in the sink all night.
Right.
So, I guess, I think you told me before, I believe, is your daughter pretty organized naturally? Or maybe not.
Yes and no.
How do you get, because you're exactly right. Like you can have this great spring cleaning, like all weekend, we're all cleaning, we're taking everything out, we're, getting every little dust bunny and crumb out of every little crevice and corner. We put it all back and you're so happy. But like kids they're like fast in like the speed in which they can mess something up.
Right.
So like you said, it could be a matter of hours and you're like, perfect kitchen and almost look like you've done nothing. So like, what strategies do you use with your own kids in terms of the cops are coming for them? The cleaning cops. What strategies do you use with your kids to kind of help them. And I mean, obviously, like you said, like having realistic expectations, I think for kids is one thing. You have young kids and you want them to be able to live and play and get their toys out and do these things. But living in real life, there's this one end of you that's like a professional organizer, and then there's this other. And I think most kids are inherently a little bit more comfortable with the chaos.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I think it's, again, having when there is a specific spot, I can't talk today, 4 things that makes the cleanup time that much easier. So if we're talking about little kids, 2, 3, 4-year-olds, then it's teaching them to pick up after themselves. And when I had kids that age, it was like, okay, well, you're ready to go on to the next item. Let's pick up this item first. Or when you have friends over, that's when the real chaos happens. So then it would be, I don't know, maybe I was the mean parent, but it was like, okay, you need to pick up all this room before you have your snack or before you get to do that type of thing. So I think, again, this all sounds so simple, but most people don't put the practice into place. So, and then I think as your kids get older, it's whatever you're comfortable with, but maybe their room is picked up on a weekly basis, and twice a year you're actually in with them going through and doing that spring cleaning, that deep dive into it, because they're not going to do that. And again, like you said, it depends on your child's personality. My son wants to keep everything. Yeah. But then it's like, well, if everything is kept, then nothing's special. He'll say like, oh, I worked really hard on that. And I know you worked hard on that, but we can't keep every art doodle that you do. So
do you like sneak them into the garbage? I hope my kids never listen to this. I do that all the time.
Well, I mean, that's okay.
They're Picasso like every day. And like they come and they show you, and I feel so terrible, but it's like you said, it's like my whole house would be full of like watercolors.
Right.
If I didn't.
Yeah, and you have 4 kids.
Right. And so I would say, like, I am not organized, but I'm a master at sneaking that thing to the bottom of the trash can. I'm like, you put the milk carton on top, and you're like...
Well, they're never going to know.
But I've been busted a few times, but I have gotten better over the years.
But it's okay. You can be better. But on the flip side, I do like to say, too, that have them be a part of it. And because some clients I work with will want to be secretive about all of it, but it's like, then you're not teaching them how to be, and I'm not saying that.
No, because that is true. Like I have done that, but I agree. Like we've had the conversations, and my kids do. I mean, as they've gotten, my 13-year-old isn't bringing home watercolors either. So it's also, I think, to keep in mind, it's a phase of life, because unless your kid's really into art, and in which case some of those might be worth saving.
Right. Oh, of course. It might be worth something.
Yeah, at that age. But like also we have had that conversation, and they do understand that. even when they come home, they were like more into mass production some days, you can tell, than they were maybe into quality. And so it's like, oh, these are so great. And sometimes the other trick I'll use, or maybe not trick, but I'm like, let's take a picture of your favorite one so we can keep it forever, because where would we put all these papers? And that seems to at least be a benefit, I think, of the digital age, is they're like, yeah, that makes sense. Yes. We've got this like keep forever photo of this amazing painting of the fish you did, but there's just no way, like, your room's full, whatever, your little cubby's full. We can't keep these papers forever. So,
and I think the kids' paperwork in general is, and again, everyone is different, but so often I'll see cardboard boxes just with hundreds of sheets of paper. But then again, that becomes an overwhelming task. So if on a daily basis, it's the same thing with physical mail that comes in the mailbox. If you can have the touch it once rule, if it's trash, don't even bring it in your house, put it in the recycling bin on the way in. It's the same thing with kids' paperwork. If it's a little, I don't know, grammar worksheet that is great and you looked at it, but if you can immediately recycle it or toss it, it's like, then it's never going to be extra work for you to go through again.
Yes.
But then the process that I will teach my clients or do in my own home is it's like, okay, you will have the stack of papers that you do decide to keep, and then maybe at that winter break and at summer break, you can kind of go through and reassess what are the permanent keepers. So it's like if you can have that basket for the middle stage and then some sort of container for the permanent keepsakes stage.
Yes.
I think that's the way to handle that flow of paperwork coming in.
I like this touch it once philosophy. Can you expand on that a little bit? Because I do feel like that's something I need to integrate.
Paperwork is the most time-consuming part of the organizing process, but oftentimes it's the most critical part because that's what stops us from being able to focus on our work, because our office is a disaster or the kitchen command center is such a scene. It just, like you said it in the beginning, it just keeps that weight on your shoulders. So it's like if you can touch it once, so you get a wedding invitation in the mail, and so that's something you have to take action on. But then what I mean by touch it once is, okay, so that's something that, you need to talk to Shakar about or whatever. So it goes into the spot where that to-do action is.
But how do I not leave it there?
How do you not leave it in the...
Like, to me, that's the problem. Then it's like, oh, and then later you're like, oh gosh, I didn't respond to that because it was,
okay.
I meant to, and then I put it here. We're going to respond. And then all of a sudden somebody's like, are you coming to my wedding? And you're like, oh yeah, I never sent that back.
Right. So again,
I'm that guy.
A great, that's me. So that's a good question. Again, like we're talking, because people can preach and throw out all these things, but we're talking real life here. So again, that is one of those less than 2-minute things. So initially when you get that party invite, you can put it on your calendar. Like for me, that's on my phone.
Yes.
I use my phone calendar. But then if we're having a minimal amount of items that are in your to-do basket, then it's going to be so much more attainable.
Yes.
So that's the other thing is most people keep way too much paper. So why are we keeping all of this paper? How is that serving us? So I think you need to really examine what paper you're keeping, and also maybe opting out of having it come to you anyway. So really, what paperwork do you need? Tax information, certain important forms, but paperwork in general is most often not needed, and yet we're keeping it, and we feel this need to keep it. I don't even own a printer, so.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I do not own a printer. There's like once or twice a year I have to print something, and my in-laws are super sweet, and I will say, "Can you print this for me?" But I don't need one.
And it probably like is intentional because you're like, then I'm not creating more paper in my life.
Yeah, I don't want the paper. So I guess like how many things are you really getting that need attention? I'm guessing you as a mom of 4, most of the things that need attention are probably kids' school items. Like you need to...
But again, most of those do come through like online.
Email or
fortunately
different channels.
Anymore, a lot of the stuff is just, fortunately, I think, but...
Right.
Yeah.
And if you have a coupon bin and it's like, okay, touch it once because you have this Gap.
Yeah.
Whatever, and then it goes.
I gave up on those too because that one was causing me problems, and I finally just said, and I still have to catch myself once in a while because I'll see stuff and I'll be like, oh, that's a really good deal. But 99.9% of the time, I would find those things expired like 6 months later, and it was like, this is just
not worth
cluttering my life.
But then that's great because you're knowing how you work and you're being realistic, and it's like, yeah, just let it go. But if that is you and that's important to you, then it's getting it where it needs to be the first time. And it's like gift cards. Have a gift card bag or box or whatever, or just a designated spot for that. Or but yeah, the paperwork in general, it piles up in our kitchens, and it's like, oh well, that's my reference sheet for my vacuum cleaner.
Yeah.
Well, do you really need that? People think they need it, but chances are, just in case usually means never.
Right.
So that's another, most of these things you're accessible online. So
yeah, that's what I was going to say. I think that's a good reminder too, is you save all those like manuals for every appliance you get for some reason. And all that stuff. First of all, I don't think I've ever, like if my refrigerator breaks, I'm not going to be using the manual to fix it. I don't know what
kudos to you.
If you are, but to me, if you are capable, you probably don't even need the manual, right? So I feel like that is probably available online, and that is true because when stuff has broken, I never find the manual. You Google whatever, Maytag refrigerator, door is falling off or something.
And if it's in this corner of your basement, it's like, oh yeah, I know the exact spot. No, you don't. Just get rid of it.
No way. That or hopefully the handy person that you've hired knows and you didn't. They're probably also, I've never had one ask me for the book.
Yeah.
So I think that's a good point. Okay, so kind of my final question kind of still goes back to this idea of just this overwhelm and sort of getting started. So I know you work with a lot of clients. A lot of people might have the one, little angel on their shoulder that's like, this is springtime, we're going to get this place cleaned up. But then there's this other idea that's like, where do I start? And I know, on the one hand, you'd probably say, what's bothering you the most, start there. Sure. But I assume that there's some people that are just
it all bothers me.
It all bothers me. In your experience, for most people, what's maybe the best place to start, or how do they make that decision?
Yeah, I love that question. I think kitchens and bedroom closets are two, kind of like you talked about the garage, but the kitchen is where we clearly spend a lot of time, but then your closet is where you start your day, and if your clothes are chaos, and that just kind of is how you can start your day in that chaotic mode. So I think that's a wonderful place to start, is in with your clothes.
Yeah, I love that idea, because I think, like you said, it really just has a lot to do with the everyday things that you do. And definitely, what do you do every day? You get up and you get dressed and you eat.
Yeah, right.
So I think knowing that those are two things I do every day. And so even if I can make those processes smoother, feel better, make me feel like my life is less of a mess, I think that can trickle down to
everything else.
And
I think along with the closets, I think it goes with your bathroom as well. Just all of the products, and that feels so great too in this time of year. If you can be in your bathroom and go through all of the cosmetics and hair products, and a lot of, especially women, like to try new products, and it's like, oh, well, I used that twice, but then I spent $40 on that, so I don't want to get rid of it.
Even though I hate it and I never use it.
Yeah, but it's time to just call it, be done with it, or my friend might want it. Nope, just let it go. So I think the bathroom is a great place to tie into the bedroom too, and just wipe out the drawers and get the gunk from the makeup and all of that. So
I love it. Okay, so and then finally, let's make sure that everyone also incorporates the idea of it's okay to get professional help with this. So if it's feeling overwhelming, if you'd like some support or just a little hand holding, a little direction when you're jumping into this, especially if you're in the Omaha area, Kacie at Get Organized Omaha is an excellent resource. What's the best way for people to get a hold of you?
Email or message through Facebook or Instagram, or people can text message me to information online.
Okay. And your website is?
Just getorganizedomaha.com.
Excellent. Highly recommend.
Thank you.
My most organized friend. And so I hope all your spring cleaning goes swimmingly. I hope it's warming up wherever you are. And thanks again for joining us for another episode of Feeding the Family. We'll see you next week for another great episode.